but I don't want you to be at all intimidated by it. It's just, I don't know, it's just the way we write it. This notation means inverse. So when it says find F inverse, don't panic. That just means we're finding the inverse. Now, the first thing is really easy to do. Now, there is going to be a harder problem, but these first few are very easy. First thing I want you to do is take out the function notation, and remember that f of x is just y. So I am going to rewrite f of x as y. Okay? Then the second thing, switch your variables. So x equals 2y plus 1. Yes, that's kind of a magic step, but it's what we're going to do. We're going to switch our variables. Okay? Now we're going to get y by itself. Okay? So easy. What are you going to do here to get y by itself?
Divide.
Nothing to divide first. First we'll subtract the 1. And then, William, we will divide. And so the direction said find the inverse. So we'll say, okay, our inverse is that answer right there, x minus 1 over 2. Your job is to find the inverse, and after you get y by itself, that is the inverse. Okay? Now, let's look at the next one. It is exactly the same thing, guys. What do I do first?
X equals 3y minus 1.
Well, wait, you're going way ahead of us now. Let's do it step at a time. So one step at a time. First, we'll put a y in place of the f of x. Remember, always y is the same as f of x. And then we'll switch the variables. So x equals 3y minus 1 over 2. You with me still? And now we're going to get y by itself. So what will we do first?
Add the 1.
I don't add the 1 first. First I have to multiply by 2. I got to get rid of that fraction first. So I'll multiply by 2. Now I will add 1. And then I will divide by 3. Once I get y by itself, that is my answer. So I'll say the inverse is, remember that notation just means the inverse is 2x plus 1 over 3.
You have to rewrite it out like that?
Yeah. Yep, that's it for that page. Okay. All right, here's one very similar. So do you think you could maybe get started on this one on your own? Let's see. Take a couple minutes and see if you can find the inverse for this problem. Okay, what did you do first? like you need to be turning that paper in pretty soon,
Yeah.
okay? What'd you do first?
Multiply?
Well, first, we did some switching of letters, and then the first operation we're gonna do is multiply. So first, I put in a y, and then I switched my variables, and then I multiplied. Is everybody with us to this point? Everybody good then? Okay, then what? Subtract. And then finally, divide. So you ended up with 9x minus 2 over 4. And once you have y by itself, that's your answer. So was anybody able to come up with that all by yourself before we started it? Yes. Who has a question? Oh, all right, sorry.
When you like write it out as the answer, do you put like right equals or do you want to do F and make it?
F inverse, yeah, you want to use the inverse notation. Now, that's one of those things, Ari, that doesn't mean the problem is wrong. It just means you're going to miss a little tiny bit of credit because you're finding the inverse, and this says this is the inverse. Okay, but it's like a y. Now, the next one looks a little bit different, but I think you can figure it out. It starts off obviously exactly the same way. So we'll make y equals, and then we'll switch our variables. But now this is where it gets a little bit different. This looks different than our last couple have looked. What do you think we should do here if our goal is to get y by itself? Gotta square it. And when I square both sides, this is going to be x squared. What's this going to be? Y minus 2. Very good, because when you square a square root, it just disappears. And then what will we have to do to get y by itself? Add 2. And as soon as we do that, we have our answer. So the inverse is x squared plus 2. Now, did you notice that we started with a square root function? And the inverse turned out to be a squaring function? Inverses are, opposite is not the right word, but they like undo each other. So does it make sense that if one function square roots, its inverse is going to have to square? Sure. It's like what happened here. If one function adds 2, the other one is going to subtract 2. They undo each other. Inverses undo each other. All right. Everybody's good so far, and now we've got the big, bad, horrible problem. Okay? So here we go. You can just tell this one's bigger. So I have stuck in my y. And now I'll switch my variables, and that means all of them. So I'll have 2y plus 1 and 3y minus 4. Now this is very different, guys. So what do you think? What kind of makes sense to you to do here? Now what do you mean by flip it, Hannah?
Like, put the denominator on the top and then the bottom.
That's a thought. No, that's not what we're going to do, but that's a thought. Jada, good thought.
Like, multiply the bottom.
Okay, I love that, Jada. You're exactly right. Jada says, okay, in these other problems, when we had something like 2x plus 5 over 9, you know, the first thing we did was multiply by 9, right? To get rid of the fraction. So that's exactly what Jada is suggesting here. Let's multiply by that whole denominator. So we're going to have x, 3y minus 4, equals 2y plus 1. Now I want everybody to make sure you understand what I just did. I took this and multiplied it over here. Okay?
Is it okay to have the x in the parentheses? It doesn't matter?
X can be in parentheses. This has to be in parentheses because I'm going to distribute.
Alright.
My next step is going to be, this is a distribute problem. Does everybody see that? That's a distribute. So I'm going to have 3xy minus 4x equal to 2y plus 1. Yes, William?
So you subtract the 1 and divide the 2?
Absolutely a magnificent idea, except, there's a problem with that. Now, I am so grateful to William for saying that, because that is what most of you are going to do at some point. So my job is to keep emphasizing over and over again. William knows he's got to solve for y. He has to get y by itself. So he said, I'm going to subtract the 1 and divide by 2. Will y be by itself? Yes. But the problem is right there. There's a y on the other side. And when we say get y by itself, we mean y equals no more y's, just y equals. So what we do instead, William, is you rearrange these terms right here, we rearrange them so that every y is on one side and everything else is on the other side. So see this guy right here? I'm going to bring him over here, and I'm going to bring this guy over here. So I'm going to have 3xy minus 2y, because I brought it over, equal to 4x plus 1. So the 2y comes over and joins this y, and the 4x goes the other way because I only want y's on one side. So I didn't really do anything except rearrange the terms so that all the y's are on one side. Now I'll factor out the y. And notice when I factor out the y, now there's only one y in the problem. Instead of 2 y's, like I had before, now there's just one. Any idea what the last step will be to do? I'm not subtracting, I would have to what? This is a times right here, so I'd have to divide. I'm going to divide both sides by 3x minus 2. So y equals 4x plus 1 over 3x minus 2. And that is my inverse. Now there's a lot of work involved with that, so we're going to do a couple more. There's one more here, but we'll do as many as we have time to do. I can never remember how much time we have. 5 minutes, we can do a whole other problem in 5 minutes. All right? So here we go. Let's do F. See if you can remember those steps. I know I have to erase all this, so it's not up here anymore. But see if you can remember the steps we went through. Because some point, we're gonna have a quiz and you're gonna have to do this for me. But I have confidence. All right, so here's the problem. So everybody gets the first step, y equals. I hope everybody gets the second step, switch the variables. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. Everybody still with me? All right, so what happens now? What do we do now? Multiply it over, exactly. Multiply this over to here. Now, what do you remember? Once we got that multiplied over there, Jada's going like this. Do you distribute now? So we're going to have 4xy plus x equal 8y minus 2. Now, here comes the step we always forget. What do I do now? Switch things around so that what? Y's on one side, other things on other side. So it doesn't matter which way you go. I'm going to bring the 8y over here and the x over here. So 4xy minus 8y. Remember, when I bring it to the other side, it changes sign. Equals negative x minus 2.
Why is it a negative x?
Because I'm moving it to the other side, so I'm subtracting it.
Oh, okay.
Remember, when things change sides, they change signs. So if it's positive on the left, it's going to be negative on the right, and vice versa. Now what? Factor out the y. What will I have left if I pull out the y? What's going to be in the parentheses?
Can you not take up the y?
You can, but remember, I'm trying to get y by itself. I don't want the 4 there. I want just y. So it'll be 4x minus 8. And then see, when I divide, I'm going to have y equals. I don't want 4y equals. I want y equals. So y will equal negative x minus 2 over 4x minus 8. And that will be my answer. Okay? See, I told you we could get that done. All right, let me make a note that that's where we stopped.